My name is John Smith, and I'm 38 years old. I've lived in Chicago, Illinois for most of my life. I work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. My wife Jessica and I have been married for 13 years. We met in college, fell in love quickly, and have been inseparable ever since. Or so I thought. A few months ago, things started to feel different between Jessica and me. She was coming home later than usual, claiming she had to stay late at work or go to the gym. Her phone was always glued to her hand, and she'd become secretive about it, often turning the screen away from me. I tried to brush off my concerns, telling myself I was just being paranoid. My best friend, Mike Johnson, had been my rock for as long as I could remember. We'd been through thick and thin together since high school. Mike and his wife Lisa lived just a few blocks away, and we often spent weekends barbecuing together or watching football games. Mike was like a brother to me, and I trusted him completely. One night, after a particularly tense dinner where Jessica barely spoke to me, I decided to confide in Mike. We met at our favorite bar, a cozy dive called O'Malley's, and I poured my heart out over a couple of beers. "I don't know, man," I said, staring into my drink. "Something's off with Jessica. She's been so distant lately, and I'm starting to think she might be seeing someone else." Mike listened intently, his brow furrowed in concern. "Have you tried talking to her about it?" he asked. "Yeah, but she just gets defensive and accuses me of being paranoid. I don't know what to do." Mike took a sip of his beer, then leaned in closer. "Listen, John. I know Jessica pretty well, and I can't imagine her doing something like that. But if you're really worried, maybe you should find out for sure. You deserve to know the truth." His words hit me hard. The idea of hiring a private investigator had crossed my mind, but it felt so extreme. Still, Mike was right. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. "Okay," I said, nodding slowly. "I'll do it. I'll hire someone to find out what's going on." Over the next few days, I contacted a private investigator named Sam Walker. Sam came highly recommended, and after a brief consultation, I felt confident in his abilities. He assured me he'd be discreet and would get to the bottom of things quickly. The waiting was the hardest part. Every day, I went through the motions at work, pretending everything was normal while my mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Nights were even worse. Jessica's behavior didn't change, and I found myself scrutinizing her every move, searching for clues. About a week later, Sam called me with an update. "John, I've got some information for you. Can we meet in person?" My heart pounded as I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. When I arrived, Sam was already there, a thick manila envelope in front of him.
He motioned for me to sit, and I did, feeling a sense of dread wash over me. "John, I've been following Jessica for the past week," Sam began, "and I'm afraid your suspicions were correct. She has been seeing someone else." I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. "Who is it?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Sam slid the envelope across the table. "I think you should see for yourself." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of photographs. My worst nightmare was staring back at me. Jessica, wrapped in the arms of another man. They were in various locations, a restaurant, a park, even outside a hotel. The final picture was the most damning. Jessica and the man kissing passionately, completely oblivious to the world around them. I felt sick to my stomach. "Who is he?" I asked again, my voice stronger this time. "His name is Paul Miller," Sam said. "He's a co-worker of Jessica's. They've been seeing each other for a few months now." My mind raced. I remembered Jessica mentioning Paul a few times, always in passing, never anything that raised red flags. How could I have been so blind?
Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. That night, I waited for Jessica to come home. My anger was boiling just beneath the surface, but I knew I needed to stay calm. When she finally walked through the door, I could see the surprise on her face at finding me waiting for her. "John, what are you doing up?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but cold. She frowned, sensing something was wrong. "About what?" I reached for the envelope on the coffee table and handed it to her. "About this." Jessica's face went pale as she looked through the photos. She didn't say a word, just stared at them with a mixture of shock and guilt. "How long?" I demanded. "How long have you been seeing him?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she finally spoke. "A few months. John, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." "Well, you did," I snapped. "Why, Jessica? Why would you do this to us?" She took a deep breath, wiping away her tears. "I don't know. I felt disconnected from you. We haven't been the same for a while, and Paul was there. He made me feel wanted, appreciated." Her words cut deep, but I couldn't let her see how much it hurt. "So you decided to throw away 13 years of marriage for some fling?" "It wasn't just a fling," she said softly. "I have feelings for him." The room fell silent as I processed her words. The woman I thought I knew so well had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The next few days were a blur. Jessica stayed with a friend while I tried to sort through my emotions. I confided in Mike again, telling him everything that had happened. "Man, I had no idea," he said, shaking his head. "I'm so sorry, John." "It's not your fault," I replied. "I just don't know what to do now." Mike looked at me with a determined expression. "You need to take care of yourself, first and foremost. If that means ending things with Jessica, then so be it. You deserve to be happy." His words resonated with me. I knew I couldn't continue living like this, with the constant pain and betrayal hanging over me. I had to make a decision, and I had to do it for myself. A few days later, Jessica came back to the house to talk. We sat in the living room, the tension between us palpable. "John, I know I've hurt you deeply," she began, "and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want to try to make things right. I want to go to counseling, work on our marriage. Please, give us another chance." I looked at her, the woman I had once loved more than anything in the world. The pain in her eyes was real, but so was mine. "I can't do it, Jessica," I said quietly. "I can't move past this. I think the best thing for both of us is to end this now." Tears streamed down her face, but she nodded, accepting my decision. "I understand," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, John." The divorce process was painful and messy, as they often are. Friends and family were shocked, offering their support and condolences. Mike was there for me every step of the way, helping me navigate the emotional roller coaster. In the end, I kept the house, and Jessica moved in with a friend until she could find a place of her own. The paperwork was finalized, and just like that, 13 years of marriage were over. It wasn't the ending I had hoped for, but it was the reality I had to accept. Life doesn't always go the way we plan, and sometimes the people we trust the most can let us down. But through it all, I learned the importance of resilience and the strength to move forward, even when it feels impossible. As for Jessica, I don't know what the future holds for her. Our paths have diverged, and I have to focus on rebuilding my life, one step at a time. The pain of betrayal will fade, and one day I hope to find happiness again. Months passed, and life gradually started to regain a sense of normalcy. I threw myself into my work, taking on new projects and responsibilities to keep my mind occupied. I also reconnected with old friends and started new hobbies, finding solace in the simple pleasures of life. Mike remained a constant presence, always ready with a word of encouragement or a listening ear. He and Lisa were my anchors, reminding me that not all relationships end in betrayal. One evening, as I was sorting through some old photographs, I came across a picture of Jessica and me on our wedding day. We looked so happy, so full of hope for the future. It was hard to reconcile those smiling faces with the pain and heartache that followed. I decided to put the photos away, not out of anger or regret, but because it was time to let go of the past. Holding on to the hurt would only prevent me from moving forward and finding peace. As the 1-year mark of our divorce approached, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. The pain was still there, but it had dulled to a manageable ache. I realized that I had grown stronger through the ordeal, more resilient and self-aware. One Saturday, Mike and I were sitting in the backyard enjoying a barbecue. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the city. "You know," Mike said, taking a sip of his beer, "you've come a long way, John. I'm proud of you." I smiled, feeling a sense of pride in myself as well. "Thanks, Mike. I couldn't have done it without you. That's what friends are for, he replied with a grin. As I looked around at the people who had stood by me through the darkest times, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Life hadn't turned out the way I expected, but I was still standing, still fighting for my happiness. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what the future held, I would be okay. I had the strength to face whatever came my way, and the support of true friends to help me through it. As I settled into my new routine, I found solace in focusing on my well-being. I started working out regularly, something I had neglected for years. Exercise became a therapeutic outlet for my emotions, and it helped me regain confidence in myself. Mike suggested we take a trip together, a way to escape the memories and create new, positive experiences. We decided on a fishing trip to the lakes in Minnesota, a place where neither of us had been before. It was just the change of scenery I needed. The fresh air and tranquil environment were a welcome relief. We spent our days on the water, casting lines and sharing stories. It was during one of those quiet mornings, with the sun rising over the lake, that I realized I was beginning to feel like myself again. "John," Mike said as we reeled in our lines, "I'm glad we did this. You seem more at peace." I nodded, watching the water ripple. "Yeah, I think I needed this, a break from everything." Mike smiled. "Sometimes a change of scenery is all it takes." The trip was a turning point for me. When we returned to Chicago, I felt rejuvenated and ready to face the challenges ahead. I knew the journey to healing wasn't over, but I was on the right path. Back in Chicago, I decided to expand my social circle. Mike introduced me to some of his friends from work, and I joined a local book club. It was a diverse group, and the discussions were lively and engaging. It felt good to be part of something new, to connect with people who had no knowledge of my past. One of the members, Sarah, stood out to me. She was intelligent, kind, and had a great sense of humor. We often found ourselves on the same side of debates, and over time, we started hanging out outside of the book club. One evening, after a particularly heated discussion about the latest book, Sarah and I went for a walk along the lakefront. The conversation flowed easily, and I realized how much I enjoyed her company. "John, I have to ask," she said, glancing at me. "Why did you join the book club?" I chuckled. "Honestly, Mike suggested it. He thought I needed to get out more." Sarah smiled. "I'm glad he did. It's been great getting to know you." We continued walking, the city lights reflecting off the water. It was the first time in a long while that I felt a spark of excitement about the future. As my friendship with Sarah grew, I found myself opening up to her about my past. She listened without judgment, offering support and understanding. It was refreshing to be with someone who saw me for who I was now, not defined by my past mistakes. One evening, we decided to have dinner at a new restaurant downtown. The ambiance was perfect, and as we talked, I realized how much I looked forward to our time together. "John, I know we've both been through a lot," Sarah said, her eyes sincere. "But I really enjoy spending time with you. I think we could have something special." Her words took me by surprise, but in a good way. I felt the same way, but I'd been hesitant to admit it, afraid of being hurt again. Yet looking at Sarah, I felt a sense of calm and certainty. "I feel the same way, Sarah," I said, reaching for her hand. "Let's take things slow, but I want to see where this can go." We spent the rest of the evening talking and laughing, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a genuine sense of happiness. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope and possibility. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. As the months passed, my relationship with Sarah deepened. We shared our dreams and fears, supporting each other through the ups and downs. It was different from what I'd experienced with Jessica, more mature, grounded, and honest. Mike and Lisa were thrilled for me, often inviting Sarah and me over for dinner or game nights. Our weekends were filled with laughter and good company, a stark contrast to the loneliness I'd felt before. One evening, as Sarah and I were walking through Millennium Park, she stopped and turned to me. "John, I know we've both been through a lot, but I want you to know how much you mean to me. You've brought so much joy into my life." Her words touched me deeply. "Sarah, you mean the world to me too. I never thought I'd find happiness again, but you've shown me it's possible." We continued walking, hand in hand, feeling hopeful about the future. In time, I found myself thinking less about the past and more about the present and future. Jessica and I had little contact, our lives moving in separate directions. It was a painful chapter, but one that had taught me valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of self-worth. Work was going well, and I even received a promotion. The new responsibilities were challenging but fulfilling, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Sarah and I decided to move in together, a big step that felt right for both of us. We found a cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood, a place where we could build new memories. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. I had learned that perfection was an illusion, and true happiness came from appreciating the simple, everyday moments. As I look back on the journey, I realized how far I'd come. The pain of betrayal had been overwhelming, but it had also led me to a deeper understanding of myself and what I wanted in life. One evening, Mike and I sat in his backyard, watching the sunset. "You've come a long way, John," he said, handing me a beer. "I'm proud of you." I smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "Thanks, Mike. I couldn't have done it without you." He grinned. "That's what friends are for." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. Life had taken me through unexpected twists and turns, but I had emerged stronger and more resilient. And as I looked to the future, I felt a renewed sense of hope and excitement for what lay ahead. Life is a journey filled with challenges and triumphs, and sometimes the greatest lessons come from the hardest experiences. My story is one of resilience, healing, and the power of true friendship. I learned that even in the face of betrayal, it's possible to find strength within ourselves and rebuild our lives. The pain of the past doesn't have to define us. Instead, it can shape us into stronger, more compassionate individuals. As I move forward, I carry the lessons I've learned with me, knowing that I'm capable of overcoming any challenge. The future is uncertain, but it's also filled with endless possibilities. And so, with a hopeful heart and a determined spirit, I embrace the journey ahead, ready to create a life filled with joy, love, and new beginnings.